Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Accessibility Design Tools and Tips presentation presented by Carnegie Higher Ed. So making accessibility a part of our projects from their inception, so content design and implementation provide the best user experience is something that we really hold true to our process. Today, I want to share some tips, tricks, and tools that we use every day in our design work and that help you to better serve all of your audiences. So first, who am I? I'm Alayna Setterlind. I'm the Director of Web Design and UX here on the Carnegie Web team. And I'm the inquisitive and creative storyteller. So those are my Carnegie Chem archetypes. So orange, red, and green. And the first thing I want to talk about today is testing and creating color palettes for the web. So this is something that, we have to do on a regular basis. And often brand guidelines include a variety of primary and secondary colors, which might not always be, meeting our contrast standards. So printed collateral like view books and posters, they can display color combinations with low contrast and low color dependency. So we have to find ways to mitigate that and make sure that we are putting, color contrast combos on the web that will meet accessibility. And something I also wanted to talk about was exploring OK-LCH color space. So this is something that we've been looking a lot more into, different color spaces and different tools that can help us to create more accessible color palettes. So you can see I have the Atmos tool here. This is something that can generate accessible color combinations. And it's a new way to define CSS colors. And I also wanted to highlight looking at one of these examples from some work that we've done in the past. As you can see, we're using, they were using this light green on a piece of print collateral. And we went into, start working on the website. We had to really look at the colors and see, hey, how are these working on the web? And making sure that the color combinations were accessible. So as you can see, the white over this green wasn't quite meeting contrast. So we actually had to, make a darker green version of this. It does change it quite a bit, but at least we know that this is something that is going to be accessible and inclusive. And as well as, maybe adding a different color using their blue from their palette with the green. So introducing new combinations that still hold true to their brand guidelines, but are accessible as well. And so this is just a couple screenshots from the Atmos color tool. You can easily test color codes and compare with other shades. So this is a test example. It simulates types of color deficiencies. So to adjust the colors, so this would be something where you can actually go through, test this contrast for a particular hex code and look at these different color deficiencies and see how those would render for somebody with that deficiency. So it's a super useful tool, and we're really excited to start using it even more. Then the next piece we want to talk about is curbing 4 common accessibility pitfalls. So these are things that we face every day as we're designing and thinking about how we can actually, resolve these problems and come up with great solutions that are accessible and inclusive. So number 1 is hero banner text. So this is an example of 2 solutions that we have found are really helpful for hero banners. So the first one is from a site that we worked on where the client really was, adamant about, hey, we don't want to cover up the beautiful photography that we just reshot for, our admissions page, but we want to make sure it's accessible with the text over the top. So we did decide to use this background for the text, but without having to do a full overlay on that image. So finding those compromises that are accessible, but also still visually appealing is really something important for our design work. And then the second one is another solution that we have found has been a useful one with hero banners. And that is really just making sure that we're not using text over an image and not having to kind of fight with those overlay contrast metrics. We just can add the text right onto a color background and then just separate the image from that piece. It still looks cohesive, but it's not, clashing. There's no conflict there with the contrast. And then number 2 is link text. So again, this is something too that we've seen a lot, and I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this, where you might have, a post or something that has a headline, and then the link says read more or click here. But we want to definitely avoid that, because that can be something that can be an issue when it comes to screen readers and other assistive technologies that our users are utilizing. So a great and simple way to change that up and mitigate that is to actually just link the headline text. And so that way you always have a great title that has a lot of context, great for screen readers, and also great for SEO. So that's something that we recommend, and it's kind of a new standard that we use when it comes to posts and events. And then number 3 is drop-down menus. This is also something you might have seen, and we even see this on, really large company sites, where large corporation sites where they haven't fully, customized their menu to be more accessible. So for example, we are showing one of our sites where instead of on hover on this dropdown, it's actually on click. And this is really useful for folks that are, zooming in and magnifying their screen to actually look at links, as well as using keyboard controls and tabbing through the menu to click into a particular page. And then number 4 is uppercase text. This is, I would say kind of a constant battle when it comes to visual design. Everyone loves uppercase text. Visually, it can look really appealing and very impactful, but we have to be careful about how that can actually read for somebody that, might have a visual impairment or a disability. So we want to, be mindful of how we're using uppercase text. So in this case, we're actually using it in a shorter headline. And then below, we are using title case text in the call to action, because that way we can kind of have more control over that and make sure that where there needs to be longer text, that can be title case, and where we can kind of control the length and have it feel more presentational, we can use the uppercase. So it's not a hard and fast rule, but it's just about kind of finding that balance and making that user experience more accessible. And then just looking again at some of these examples a little bit closer up. So we have that hero banner text, our link text with the post, our drop-down menus, taking a look at that a little bit closer, uppercase text. And next up, thinking more about how we have these latest updates to the 2.2 version of our standards. So experimenting with design trends while still adhering to these latest updates. This can be something where, you definitely have to find that balance of pushing the design envelope, but at the same time, making sure things are accessible. So for example, we are looking at, an inspiration site where it was using a drag to explore carousel functionality. And, even for not using assistive technology, it was something that was challenging to use, but we really liked the design and the look and the feel of it. But we were like, how can we make this more accessible? Let's just, take this as inspiration, but make it accessible, make it this kind of custom component. So we use this in this component called Tower Takes, where you actually can drag to explore similarly to the inspo, but you can also navigate with arrows, and you can navigate using keyboard controls. So there's kind of, 2 ways to navigate, and they're both accessible. And then it also adheres to this 2.5.7 dragging movements standard. Awesome. Well, that's all I have for today. I'm really glad I was able to share these with you, and I hope these are helpful on your next design project when you're thinking about accessibility. Thank you so much.